of beautiful short stories that share energy and the essence of Source. And looking around and how life is always reminding us and mirroring us that which Source is. And to look at all that is life in new, beautiful ways of how we're connected and how we're always entangled with higher vibrational living, higher vibrational stories, and share them often, share them as many times as you're coming across them. We do learn a lot about botany. I've always found it so interesting how one of the first things that our children are connected to and our children are excited about is botany, and looking under things and in things and investigating and observing. And so really take the time to be with nature as much as possible, and you'll hear, sense, and get downloaded beautiful stories from Source that connect you with the essence of Source, bringing you in a greater depth of alignment with all that is planetary life and cosmic life, celestial oneness, and how we're all threaded from the smallest to the grandest aspects, and allow yourself to take beauty in it. And so a couple of short stories are one that is the magnolia tree. It has a very short blooming season. I'm showing you the bottom part. This is what it looks like from the bottom. And it's a purpley violet color. It's so beautiful. And it hangs on the tree facing downwards. This is the color that faces downwards. And this is the color that faces upwards to the heavens. It's a beautiful pure white, soft and silky. It feels very beautiful and soft and like a baby's skin. It's so beautiful and has its beautiful veins and preciousness. And the magnolia flower blooms so that the white of the flower is facing towards the heavens, and it reaches for the heavens much like a sunflower does. And the bottom part is a beautiful violet, and we all know that the colors of the violet and the purple are some of the most powerful enlightenment colors for us to connect with higher vibrational informations and wisdoms, and then transmute them and transpose them into stories that we can relate to and stories that we can transmute and bring into a higher connection of now. Because everything is really, and it doesn't matter what you experience, it's all about bringing into a higher consciousness of now. So everything that you look at is your opportunity to bring into a higher consciousness of now. We're going to be having people awaken to higher stories through botany, higher stories through cetacean life. So look at everything around you and bring new stories, and that's the essence of God evolving, Source evolving. And as this flower blooms, the petals are very, very gentle. And as the wind blows, the petals fall off, and the very center of the flower ends up dying, and it dries up and it goes black. And it's a very short blossoming and flowering life. But I was intrigued this morning when I was thinking about Source and wondering about Source, as I often do. Everything I look at, I see the little beautiful flowers and the little petals that these leaves are playing with the petals on. Source was reminding me of a story that Jesus had told me. And one of my first awakening stories, and how we always know that we're threaded with Source, is in the experiential stories we share. It's in the experiential stories that we have just moving through energy, just exploring our world and expressing our world in different ways, and bringing it to new stories of evolution and what we're moving through in any one moment, and how we can see all of it just as never an ending state, never a graded state or performance state, or knowing if you're doing it right or wrong, but just to enjoy the process of discovering anew. And so in this, I remember Jesus saying that you're going to be known by your light, and how always facing upward was what I had remembered from a child, and having such affinity for sunflowers, everything that was yellow. And I had always had the imprint within me of face the sun, face the sun. And so it just reminded me of how the magnolia faces the sun, and its purity of what it is always facing the sun. And although it reflects a beautiful color to the earth, although it reflects a beautiful color to whatever stands beneath it, and it's transmuting whatever is beneath it in whatever density that is beneath it, it's transmuting it through the high vibrational color through the petal. And perhaps maybe that's why it has such a short blooming life. Because whatever anybody walks beneath a beautiful flowering tree, and there's not a lot of them, and the magnolia tree is one of them, where their flowers are big as your hand. And so it really strikes us as beautiful and odd that a beautiful flowering tree that has such a short life of blossom But when you're standing beneath it and you wonder and you ponder, and maybe it's doing a lot of transmuting for us in the colors that it offers, but that we only see the purity of what it is if we look at it from above, through the heavens, and through our God self. And why there's always different aspects of the dodecahedron and the fractals and the aspects of all life that we can perceive new ways and perceive new stories. And how can that be reflective in your day to day? And how can that be reflective in the perfection of Source, that we can look at any one thing at any one moment and see it from an expanded perspective of knowingness and height and width and depth, and appreciate it all ways? Not see it as better, less than, not judge it, not grade it, not allow it its performance, but just allow its perfection of its life, allow its perfection of its cycle, allow it its own perfection of what it is and how it falls. And then as it falls to the ground, it will serve as its biodegradable energies and essence. And so that's the story that I wanted to just share with you in reflection of what and how botany inspires me with Source Creator. And as I was having my coffee in the sun, just looking at the beautiful nature and feeling it and getting connected with it, I was brought to another story that I was reminded about the process of just allowing experience to be the great itself. When so many of us were brought up on and entrained and enforced with performance-based living, performance-based surviving, grading, racing, competition, where we had to be something that we didn't really feel comfortable being, and forced into competition, and forced into being graded, not understanding the true ideas of grading. And I know that for celestial children and star seeds, that's a hard concept for us to understand, because as a star seed, we're always very proud of our uniqueness and our authenticity. We don't want to be graded in similarity like or about anyone else. But this one story that struck me this morning that I remembered, I'd locked away, I suppose. One of the very first jobs that I had was in a bank. And I remember in grade 12, I would stand at the door and I was often waiting for the supervisor there that I knew was my friend's aunt. And she had worked there for a very long time, and she had promised to give me an interview when I was ready to have, a time in the workforce and get out there and test my legs. And I'd always been fascinated with money since a child. I was counting money, saving money, putting it away, very interested in the whole idea and concept of money. And so I thought this would be very exciting, very responsible, and I felt very proud. And so I did get hired by that bank. And after quite a while, I think I was there for about, I guess my total was about 13 years in banking. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed banking. I loved the people. I loved dealing with the people. Back in the days where tellers were a thing, where we'd stand and we'd actually talk to the clients, and we'd fill out their deposit slips and we would fill out their withdrawal slips. And we would actually sometimes even remember their account numbers. That's how well we got to know our clients. And so I was a teller there, and I had learned quite quickly. I was just so fascinated with money, and I enjoyed it. I loved counting money and balancing. I thought, but great. I challenged myself every day to balance to perfection. And it was a great thing for me to always, have pride in my job, and everybody in the community knew me. And I was just very proud about that job. As time went on, of course, as a starseed and as somebody like myself, I get bored. And so I always look for the next jobs and the next promotions that would be within the bank. And so the supervisor had talked to the branch manager, and the branch manager had called me over one day. And of course, there was various promotions within the branch, and then were also held in the head office. And they had known that I had been looking. And so the branch manager had called me in, and this branch manager had been somebody that was, pretty intimidating. He had a reputation for no nonsense. He had a reputation for no small talk. He had a reputation for being very stern in his decisions of lending, and very stern in his decisions of movement of people back and forth. And if you had a discussion with him about a job, that you knew that it was something that he had taken time in reflecting on, and it would be very, very privy of you to take advantage of such opportunities if that was given. And it was given to me one day. And I was shocked. I had no idea that any discussions were taking place at all. And he had called me into his glass office, of course, in the very middle of the bank, the branch, where everybody could see me, which was kind of embarrassing. And everybody would whisper as soon as you would walk in there because nobody had known about the conversation except my team lead. And so I went in there and I was discussing with him, thinking that, oh God, what did I do? And he had, as he was shuffling papers back and forth, never truly, in the entire conversation, never paying 100% attention to me, just moving papers back and forth and giving conversation while he was signing documents and papers. It wasn't until the last few seconds that, he would sit there with his chair pulled back out of the desk and say, I'd like to offer you an opportunity to move in another direction. And what do you think about that? And so I thought about it. And I said, well, why do you think that would be, a fit position for me? And he said, well, I'll tell you a story. And then he pulled his chair back away from his desk. And he said, one of the things that you learn as you go along in somebody's long-lasting life, I suppose he had been in his 60s at that time, 70s. He says, many people walk through situations and experiences. And of course, we all know about judgments. And we all know about the perceptions that people perceive you from. And sometimes they hold them to you. But the ones that make the great leaders, the ones that make something truly available, is through the experiences that they've held and holding no apology for it. Because you know that you're going to be a leader in which your team and your staff and your tribe, they'll stand before you, stand around you, and will lift you, is when they see that you've gone through a few things. And no matter how hard and challenging, or even embarrassing or humiliating, that you get back up. And your team has seen you go through days in which you didn't balance, and you were there for hours trying to balance your blotter. And your team has seen you have angry staff and have angry clients yell that something wasn't right, and you had fixed it with grace. And your staff has seen you spend extra time on projects that you didn't get credit for. And your staff has seen you pull together social engagements and social parties that you didn't get credit for or pay for. And he said, when you move up into a position and you're going to have your teams count on you for ethics and morals and making the right decision when it's called. And the documents that I sign, sometimes it's not always how computers can work out the numbers, but it's what you believe in someone. At the end of the day, will they come through? At the end of the day, will their promise be as good as word? And perhaps we've lost that through time, through computers and technology. But what he said to me that day, I carried with me in every one of my jobs and every time that I've had a challenge, because it stands true. That those that will truly believe in you and those that will truly be there for you, they'll be the ones that have seen you go from all directions and all standpoints, and they've seen you get beat up and they've seen you get torn and ripped apart. And they'll see you get up again and again and again. And they'll believe in you because they know that your word is bond. And your staff has seen that. And I want to recommend you for this job. And as he sat back and he rolled up his sleeves, his banking, clean, crisp white shirt, starched always dressed impeccable. A very quiet man that didn't have a lot of words. And he said, what was your judgment of me when you started at this branch? Because I know there was conversations from head office. What did you do? What did you hear of me? What was your judgments of me? What did you perceive of me? And I said, well, I heard that you were a very tough manager, and if I was going to learn at a branch, this would be the one, because they had known about my intentions for promotion. And they said, well, that's really nice to hear. He said, if I let you know about a secret, that I hadn't always had my way. I'd had to work very hard. When I was young, my family didn't have the money that I'm comfortable in now. And so I appreciate the moments in which you have to work through and simply experience and challenge and suffer and struggle and get back up and move through fallacy and move through failure and all that is the experience of life. And if you can do so with such grace and just come together every day and try again, and as God says, create from where you're at. Doesn't that sound for a higher fulfilling prophecy on your own life than measuring to somebody else's values or expectations or projections of their ideals of perfectionism, and grading you and judging you and certifying you, and whatever it might be that is outer? Is it ever going to be what you can give yourself and what you've known and what you know Source knows and what you know God knows and your planet knows, and the gentleness that you walk about with life and nature, the time that you consider with botany and the seeding of new life and how it blooms, and all these wonderful things that you can thread with the perfection and the majesty of Source Creator and the many mansions that allow you deeper, wider, higher vibrational living? Because isn't it better when we allow ourselves our own self-design, our own moments where we take a simple story from a bank manager over 40 years ago and how it still stands true, that I know people are going to see that I never ever came here to design a perfect life to somebody else's ideals. I came to be uniquely me. And I'm never going to silence and I'm never going to be small. I tried that and it didn't work. Somebody else's ideas of perfection are not mine. I don't want them. I think I've done a really great job. Homeless or not, I think I'm a pretty amazing person. I'm an amazing celestial, galactic, hybrid, human, divine feminine goddess, all these things. I don't want to be graded for an end state. I don't want to be graded for something that has an end product or an end bloom. I want to know that I'm going to keep blooming forever. I'm going to have stages of life and stages of growth and stages of evolution. And I'm going to pull together all that I know. And no matter where I'm at, I'm going to create from where and what I have. And isn't that just enough? Can that not be perfection? So look back on your life today, dear lighted ones, and pull out some stories that are going to be meaningful for you, of the poignant moments in which you took a turn or a pivot from the celebration and from the inspiration of just one person taking 5 or 10 minutes just to let you know that you're important and that they've seen your hard work and they knew that you were special. And that's truly how inner faith and outer faith work. The Source Creator will put anything and all things before you, but it's how you move through it and how you deliver through yourself. Release all expectations of all others, because it's really about your experience with all life and the entanglement with it. The entanglement with nature and botany and bugs and insects and animals and divine feminine and children and the heavens and the soils and the water and the light and the dark and the love and the hate and the anger and all that we feel in the journey. So choose 1 or 2 moments and 1 or 2 stories and share them with your family. Let them know that you're wise, let them know that you're intelligent, and just share who you are. That's all that matters. Share who you are, authentically. Bring forward your sacred stories. Bring forward your sacred healings. And always, always remember, create from where you're at and always seek the sun. And look up. You've got a billion and bajillion and bajillion and bajillion of beings that are always shining down on you. And they love you infinitely. I hope you have a good day, dear lighted ones. I believe in you.